I'm Naya, mom, boob nerd, board-certified lactation consultant, and lover of lipstick and curse words. I'm that weird Indian girl you knew in high school, all grown up.
And I'm Alexis, mom, birth nerd, and therapist plus doula, encouraging parents to hold joy plus what the fuck is this mess simultaneously. Some people think I'm too much, but those aren't my people. And we are the Top Knot Squad. TKS is a tiny little podcast about motherhood in real life, the good, the bad, the ugly AF.
Hosted by two women that are passionate about our beliefs and unafraid to speak our minds.
Friends that wanted to create space for all that ish we are too scared to talk about.
Are you ready to laugh, be vulnerable, and keep it real with us?
Top knots are not required.
If the Top Knot Squad content makes you laugh, nod in agreement, or makes you feel less alone, we'd love your support in the cost of producing this podcast. Visit patreon.com/TopKnotSquad to learn more about our budget-friendly sponsorship tiers and how you can help ensure that TKS has a future. Every little bit helps. On today's episode of the Top Knot Squad, we will be discussing peopling post-pandemic. As more folks have access to the vaccine and masking guidelines change, we now have to figure out navigating our new normal. While we're excited to be able to do things again and see friends and family, we're still grappling with various fears and unknowns. And let's be real, this isn't post-pandemic. COVID isn't magically over. There's still much progress to be made, and no matter where science has brought us with the physical illness, the emotional toll still runs deep. The collective trauma of this last year is still alive and well in our nervous systems. So how in the world do we recalibrate? Luckily, we have therapist Ilyse Kennedy joining us to help us unpack it all and offer us tips and advice on how to stay connected. A little about Ilyse. Ilyse Kennedy is a licensed professional counselor, licensed marriage and family therapist, and certified perinatal mental health clinician. She owns a private practice, Moving Parts Psychotherapy, in South Austin, where she specializes in trauma recovery. She's a mental health and social justice advocate on Instagram. You can follow her at Moving Parts Psychotherapy. And by night, she is mother of two and connoisseur of the reality television arts. Welcome, Ilyse. We're so happy to have you.
I'm so excited to be here.
I loved that last line, connoisseur of the reality television arts.
I'll be watching Real Housewives of New York right after this.
Perfect.
That's awesome.
That's a nice way to unwind and end the night for sure.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Well, maybe that's your fuck yeah. So we like to start each of our episodes with just kind of an icebreaker of sorts. And so if you wanted to share a what the fuck or a fuck yeah of your day, week, month, hour, we can all take turns.
Yeah, I can go first. I guess my fuck yeah is a big one. And we booked a really fancy ass trip for my 40th birthday next month. Just Dave and I, without the kids, for a whole week. We've never left the kids alone for this long. My youngest turned 7, actually on Saturday, so we've never been away from them for more than like a night or two. So the mom guilt is starting to set in already, and I'm like, I'm a terrible mom, but I also know that like we need this. We have all been locked up in our homes with our kids, trying to navigate virtual schooling and masks and friendships and all kinds of stuff. So I know we deserve it, so I'm trying to shut up that mom guilt that always seems to rear its ugly head. But yeah, I'm really excited for our trip.
It's awesome. Gosh, I have lots to complain about. Do you have something in mind, Ilyse?
It's always a fuck yeah when it's the Real Housewives of New York and they're just back on the air, so that's very exciting. But my bigger fuck yeah is that I'm just coming off of my first week without my kids for over a year and a half. And so very relevant to the episode too, because I got to do a little peopling this week. And it just felt really, really nice to get solid sleep and relax and have the house to myself. And it's also a fuck yeah that they're back. And that was really nice to walk into after work today. So,
yeah. When you're excited to see them, you know you did the right thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely.
Let's see. I'm pretty anxious right now about weather. So in Austin currently, it's been raining for days, and really all over Texas, Louisiana, the coast. It seems like so. Like my parents' house is flooded right now, and they're supposed to be here on Friday which would have been my fuck yeah. Well, I mean, I guess it still is. I'm just like very scared that for some reason it's not going to happen. But we haven't seen them since Thanksgiving 2019, and they have not met my baby, who is turning a year on Monday, and they're supposed to be here Friday and like stay the week. So I don't really know if weather is going to ruin our birthday plans for the 1-year-old / travel plans. I don't know. So I'm like, it feels like limbo, and I'm just fucking tired of limbo. Like,
yeah,
enough is wrong. Don't take this away from me. So
yeah, it's like one bright thing, one happy thing to look into. If it makes you feel any better, this trip that we have just dropped a lot of money on and planned, and we're very excited about, happens during hurricane season. So, and then we're going to the Caribbean. So please pray for no crazy hurricanes.
Yeah.
Send non-hurricane vibes my way, please. Yeah. Similar, very similar. Yeah.
Totally. But yeah, I guess my what the fuck was peopling related too, because I'm supposed to people with my people that I haven't seen. And it's going to be the first time in a long time. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, Ilyse, do you want to start by telling us a little bit about your background and the work that you do?
Sure. So I am a trauma therapist. And so I work with a lot of people who are recovering from trauma. And I help them process trauma so it doesn't get stuck in the body through somatic experiencing and EMDR and different therapy modalities. I work with kids through adults. And then I also specialize in perinatal mental health. And I especially work with moms and birthing people who are recovering from trauma and entering into parenthood. So that's kind of what I do.
That's awesome. If you don't follow Ilyse, you should.
Yeah, you really should. You share so many pearls of wisdom and just little nuggets that help me, and they definitely kind of click into place. So I try to share whatever you post so that my I guess my followers can see it too, and we do that on TKS as well.
Yeah, I forgot to mention I'm also an Instagram therapist.
Yeah, you definitely are. That's real. People think that they're getting therapy via Instagram, but
right.
We'll let them think that.
Yes.
Well, let's get back to the topic. Is this something that you feel like you've been helping your clients deal with in your private practice or in your practice as well?
Definitely. It's been really interesting supporting people during the whole pandemic because literally every aspect of it we've been navigating together. Like I even think about the different stages that I've gone through of being a therapist during the pandemic of like, there was 1 week where I emailed everyone and said, oh, we'll have to pay attention to health protocols, but probably see you next week. And then I just never saw them again. And then there was the stage for me where it was getting to be way too much to work out of the home office. And so I started actually going to my office, but still being fully virtual. And then now I'm in a stage of doing outdoor therapy with some people. So we get to see each other in person, but outdoors. And that's actually been a really nice way for people to like dip their toe, for me too, to dip my toe back into seeing people, but also for clients to dip their toe back into seeing another person. And it's funny, like, I'm very honored, but some people have been like, oh, like I wore my best outfit for today because I was going out. And that's been really sweet, but it's been really, really nice to start to orient back to being with people and doing that in the, not in the therapy room, but in the outdoor therapy space, I guess.
Yeah.
That's very cool. That's definitely not something I would have thought of as even an option, but it makes so much sense. Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen other therapists offering walk and talk therapy currently as a way to, you know, still kind of distance and be outdoors, but be together, which sounds really nice. Plus you're moving, which is always beneficial. You're moving the body while you talk.
Definitely.
I did that once for a lactation consultation and I got eaten alive by mosquitoes. Don't recommend it for that. But, you know, we made it work. It was fine. Yeah, not something I'd recommend normally. But I think, you know, at least if you're moving around, obviously with what I do, you can move a little bit, but you can't really, I mean, I guess you could walk and nurse the baby at the same time, but that's like breastfeeding 202 instead of just, you know, 101. So it's an advanced level. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd imagine that you're like seeing a range of experiences, which I guess we should name in this episode that, like current event wise in our state of Texas where we all are, like literally just hours ago, our governor signed a mandate that nowhere has to require masks, like even the school districts. I guess the only places not impacted are hospitals and like medical settings.
Yeah, it's for all federal it's all for all governmental agencies. So schools are included in that, but private businesses are able to still set their own rules, I believe. And hospitals, like you said, and long-term care facilities as well are exempt.
Yeah. So that comes on the heels of just the general, like the CDC just announced that if you're vaccinated, you pretty much don't have to wear a mask or distance at all in any gathering, large or small. So there's just been a flux of information this week and changes. Like I feel like maybe the three of us even have individual experiences in that, but I just know that people are kind of on a spectrum, you know, so there's some folks that have literally done nothing this whole time. And so the idea of like just bam, you know, like doing
Jumping
nothing
into
to
the
like,
deep end.
now you can do everything.
Yeah.
And then like navigating, like, you know, how do you know if someone's vaccinated, yada, yada. And then there's other people that have been like living their life from go, like, so, and then of course there's people more in the middle. You know, it's not, there's just a range of experiences. And so I don't know if we wanted to speak to that a little bit and like how it's impacting people differently.
Was that for me or for Ilyse?
All of us.
Okay. I wasn't sure that was directed to.
Sorry, I went off on a tangent, but
no, you're good.
Well, we have been very strict this whole time because I have asthma and my daughter has asthma. And so we have mostly just been in, and I've been working virtually. I've had the privilege to work virtually. And so most of the pandemic, I've just been like catching up with friends on Zoom. And I wasn't even going to the grocery store or anything. Eventually I was going to my office, but there was really no one else there. And so then once I got vaccinated and I was past the 2 weeks, I felt a little more comfortable, but I was very careful about I want to make sure the first people I see are like the people I really want to see, and people that that I feel really comfortable with, so I can help myself orient to seeing them again. But like because I watch a lot of reality television, that's like my comfort zone. I've been watching a lot of reality TV during the pandemic. Also been reading a lot, but definitely been watching a lot of reality television. And
it's a balance.
Yeah. So I'm a big fan of Drag Race, and I was like, you know what? I want to see the original that they spoofed this off of. So I started watching America's Next Top Model. And I met my friend outdoors at a restaurant, and it was like the first time I had dressed up in so long, even though I did wear regular pants for work this whole time because it puts me in the zone. But I was like, I am really scared that when I walk into that restaurant, I'm going to do like a catwalk walk because I've been so deep in watching everything that Miss J teaches.
Yes.
And I was feeling so good. I was like, I really might just like walk in there, do a catwalk walk, and like turn around. And luckily I held myself back, but it did feel very, very strange to be in a hip restaurant with a friend. I was like, do we keep our masks on until the food comes, or do we take them off? Like, what do we do? And luckily she's been vaccinated for longer, so she showed me the ropes, but it's been really awkward trying to do normal things again.
Oh man, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I'm right there with you.
That's so funny. I'm like visualizing you catwalking into a restaurant. Oh man. Yeah, I've been similar of like, I mean, we have a new baby, so I feel like that clouded a lot of what we've done or not. Well, we haven't really done much until we got vaccinated. Once we got vaccinated, we did attempt a date night, but it also was just like complicated. Like the baby wouldn't go to sleep for the babysitter, you know? So I was like anxious about leaving the baby for the first time, and like he wasn't sleeping and cooperating. So I was anxious about that. And then I was like, is that what my anxiety is? Or is it because I'm around all these people and all of them like they all looked so relaxed. And I remember like feeling like rage, like, how are you so relaxed right now? And it was kind of a terrible dinner, but I stuck with it, and we made it to the end of the meal and came home and put my baby to bed. But we've since had a couple more like on the patio dinners that way. And each time it's getting like a little bit easier, but I wouldn't say that I'm fully comfortable yet. Like, and it's more about the strangers, like I'm fine with the people that I've peopled with that I know and trust. But it's like the other people there, like, who are you? What's your story? What have you been doing? What are your germs?
How safe have you been being?
Yeah.
Are you vaccinated? All those questions.
Yeah. So, it's, I'm sure, I don't know. I'm sure most of our listeners are like more in line with what we do, but I just don't want to discredit the other extremes. Like, and that everybody's kind of walking their own journey.
Yeah, for sure. I will just say that for me personally, it's the only place I've gone is work, basically. And like I was saying, we have COVID protocols. We've got all kinds of different things that we do to keep ourselves and keep our clients safe as well. So to go from almost what feels like a perpetual state of fight or flight for the last year to, okay, let's pretend like it's normal 2021 and like 2020 didn't happen at all and we weren't all just stuck at home. But I'm with you, Alexis. The people that I see that are relaxing and having fun, and if we go to like an outdoor mall, like if we go to the Domain, which is in North Austin, for those who don't know, it's an outdoor mall. Most of the people that I've seen when I've gone up there the handful of times have been masked when they're walking around, walking on the sidewalks, but a bunch of people haven't been. And I'm like, I don't understand how they can just do that. And I don't know, for me, it's like, it's a complete mind fuck. I don't know if I'm ever going to be able to get back to some kind of normal. Because again, it all comes back to what we're talking about today is the trauma of this pandemic that we're all going through.
Well, I think about, we've literally spent the past year and a half viewing other people as unsafe. Whereas before the pandemic, like maybe some people might feel unsafe, or our survival responses might light up like the fight or flight when we see something that looks like it's unsafe. But now we've been literally viewing others as unsafe. And so that creates this weird new thing where we have to go out and start orienting to people being safe again. But there's this question of like, are you really safe? Like, I don't know if you've been vaccinated. I don't know where you've been and what you've been doing. And so it's this like easing into some sense of normalcy that completely does not feel normal.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah, it's so interesting. We actually went to the Domain this last weekend, and it was Reese's first time out in the world, like fully. He's been at a million curbside parking lots, but he was like, I let him like run around. The Domain has this like large grassy lawn, and kids like run around and play there. And I let him like run around, and it was so funny because I mean, he's just not around very many people. So he doesn't think that people are dangerous. Like, so he was just like free. Like he was like squealing and running in the grass. Aww. And like, and then when he would see another person, he was like toddling over to them and like squeaking at them like a bird. And it was just like really funny and terrifying all at once. Like I was just like, I wanted to be like, stay away from the people. But I was just trying to like keep a little distance and let him explore and like take it all in. But from a baby's perspective, it's kind of like the world is really exciting.
Yeah.
So.
Well, on that note, Ilyse, can you talk a little bit about like how the fuck do we people again? Do you have any concrete tools that folks can utilize as we all kind of emerge from our cocoons?
Blind leading the blind.
Yeah, I know.
One friend that I saw last week, we have like very deep conversations every time we see each other. And I was like sharing about something, and then I stopped talking and she started talking and sharing about something in her life. And she was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Like I just started talking, and I was like, that's how we have a conversation. I talk and then you talk. And that's just how it works. So it's been really interesting on a personal level, like seeing how uncomfortable and strange it is after not peopling for so long. Because honestly, for me, so technically, like in therapy terms, we all need and yearn for connection. But also like I've gotten really comfortable not peopling. I'm a major introvert, and like peopling can be sensory overload for me personally. And so it's a big like getting out of my own comfort zone to start peopling again. Like I noticed despite the pandemic, I had so much energy this year. Well, I don't know, maybe it was because I was resting all the time. But I felt like I had a lot more energy, like creative energy and energy for projects and stuff like that, that when I'm running around and like dropping my kids off places and rushing everywhere, I don't usually have. And so the world starting to open up like brings back these old forms of exhaustion that I just don't want in my life anymore. And what I've been telling people is that like even though the world is opening up, it's not changing overnight. Like we're not going from like one day we have hundreds of COVID cases, because it's down like below 100 at least in Travis County. So we're not going from having like a bunch of COVID cases to everything being totally fine and we can just go back to normal without worry. We can go at the pace that the world is going, where things are slowly opening back up, or we can set our own pace for what we feel comfortable with. And we're still in a stage where, like, if you say no to plans, people will understand. And by the way, I think that should continue after the pandemic.
Agreed.
We should keep those boundaries and allow people to say no when they don't want to do something and have that be respected. But we're still in the very sensitive stage of being able to say no to things and having people understand, and being able to check in around consent and around how comfortable we feel with stuff. And so we can really allow this to happen slowly instead of going back directly into the busyness that our lives held before.
Mm-hmm.
I love that.
Yeah, can you speak a little bit more about the connection piece? Because when you were actually talking about just from a trauma perspective, I was thinking about that. I was like, well, actually, the anecdote is connection, which is really hard to do. And like, how do we do that at a pace that's comfortable? And like, yeah, I don't know if you have more to say around that.
I think about a lot of us have adjusted to connecting in different ways. Humans literally need connection for survival. And like, I won't get into polyvagal theory, but we
That's
literally
okay.
need connection for survival, and connection is one of our survival responses. So when we're experiencing threat, the first thing that we look for is human connection. We look to a human to help us through that threat. And what's been really cool about what's happened during the pandemic, well, I guess I've been lucky to have this happen. I know for some people, the pandemic has been a time of really deep loneliness, and feeling that lack of connection. And for some people, they've felt the loss of connections, and so they're having to grieve that. There's been another thing that's happened for those of us who have been able to stay connected with people, in that I feel like I've been able to build and hold these really intimate connections through the pandemic. Like Alexis and I are on a therapist mom group chat that has been a lifesaver. And like one of the therapists and moms on the chat, I didn't even know her before the pandemic. And we've been able to like build this intimate bond around being therapists and moms. And it's just been a really nice and held space. And I've been able to foster those other connections, like deep connections with friends. And so that's one way to kind of ease out of this, is that I'm recognizing like maybe large gatherings never were for me. And maybe for me, like it's just nice to have a dinner where we talk about deep things for 2 hours. I personally hate small talk. And so it's been very nice through the pandemic to like have friends where we just cut the small talk. I lost connection with some people, but they were more of the small talk people. And I've formed these really deep connections with other people, or held on to those really deep connections. And then, of course, the people, and some of them are the deep connection people, but just the memes. You got to have the memes too. So I've enjoyed dabbling in sitting at a restaurant and having deep conversations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You're making me think, I don't know, this like randomly just popped in my head, but I have had some relationships kind of like fall off, and I don't know that I want them to stay that way, but like again, I feel like I'm in a strange, there's this added layer of my baby, and like I've been postpartum during this process. And so like I had a few friends like reach out after he was born, like, hey, want to meet the baby? And I was like, fuck no. Like, because, you know, earlier on, that was like a hard no for me.
Yeah.
But as you were talking, I'm just like, that just popped in my head. And I was like, wow, those people haven't like asked to meet my baby now. And I'm like, maybe comfortable doing that and really want that. Like, I'm in a stage right now where I'm aching for people to know my baby, because I'm about to cry. Fuck. Didn't see that coming. Yeah, like nobody knows my baby. Yeah, I didn't expect that to show up, but you made me think about it, that there's like a small handful of people that know him at all. And even then it's not fully, or it's not the way that it would have been. So yeah, and I guess I'm just realizing that maybe I want to like reach out to some of these people and be like, hey, remember me? Like, I know I like scared you away with my hard, absolutely not, but I'm still here and I still have a baby, and like, he's kind of cool. So, yeah, that's all I'm going to say about that.
Yeah, I've also noticed that there's a bunch of friendships that have kind of fallen off, and I actually think it's because I've been more cautious than most people, partially because my husband is considered high, or was considered high risk before he got vaccinated, and partially because I work with babies that have no immune system. So I was definitely probably more cautious than a lot of people, and I've kind of felt a little left by the wayside. And kind of the similar thing, like what both of you were saying, at least those deep friendships have definitely become more shallow, I guess you can say, and maybe I'm okay with that. And I think that's okay to do. But there's definitely some friends that I miss. I miss seeing them. I miss being on that same level where we would randomly text each other. I need someone to send my TikToks to. So, I miss that relationship too. But I think you're both right in a sense that the mourning that we have for all of the things that could have been and should have been if not for this stupid pandemic. And that's, obviously it's obviously not stupid. It's very serious. But I think we're allowed to feel those things. And I think, as we continue to enter back into the world and start to do things, we're going to feel more things come to the surface that maybe we weren't paying as much attention to, or we were, for some form of self-preservation, ignoring those feelings because we needed to function and focus on other things like our actual survival. So I don't think you're alone in feeling the way that you are, Alexis. I know I feel that way too. Maybe not about something as big as knowing my baby, but still things that should have happened. And I think it's okay to be sad about them, and it's definitely okay to be angry about them.
Yeah, and postpartum in general can just be such a lonely, isolating time. Like, I know for people, including myself, who have experienced postpartum depression, like some of us felt PTSD at the beginning or throughout the pandemic because it felt like being isolated again with your kids. And so all of my friends who had pandemic babies, I just feel for you guys. To be doubly isolated is such an intense thing. And just that sense of like, wow, there are so many people that don't know my baby. Like, they haven't gotten to be with you and him as he's growing and doing all these cool new things. There's so much grief in that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, in the interest of time, I did want to ask this. I was kind of, from a parenting perspective, we've talked about like what the changes are that are existing around masking and all of that. But like kids, if you're 12 or under, you're not vaccinated yet. Like, that's not even possible for you to be vaccinated yet. And so I feel like all of these new guidelines and things keep, showing up, but there's not a whole lot of conversation about what that means for parents who they may be vaccinated, but their children aren't. And then like we're about to enter summer and like summer camps and just, I don't know, it's just this really terrible, impossible. Parents have like, if there were a competition, like parents have next level when it comes to this because there's just so many impossible decision fatigues. And so yeah, I didn't know if you had any advice for parents around how to navigate that, or even how you each personally are handling it. I don't know.
That's a good question. So I think we are going to get my kids vaccinated when it's been approved for kids under 12, because both of mine are under 12. But in the
sign
meantime,
me up. I'm first in line. But
save me a spot.
Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt.
No, you're okay. But in the meantime, like we have signed them up for summer camps, and at their school, AISD had just earlier this week had sent out a thing saying if you're okay with your children not wearing masks for recess or physical education for PE or anything where they can keep 6 feet apart, sign them up. You can sign them. And while I understand where that's coming from to find some semblance to normal, I just feel like it's another thing for teachers to have to look out for and to have to gatekeep and to have to monitor for. Like, their jobs haven't been hard enough this year. But we've actually signed them up for a PE camp. It's half day. It's going to be outdoors. And so I'm not sure what the masking requirements are. I would like them to wear masks. I would prefer that they do. But of course, if they're out running around, I'm going to tell them to do it and really hope and pray that they are able to do it. And I think that's really the best that we can do is just, even if our kids don't make the best decisions regarding masking or anything in life, we can still support them and we can still advocate for them and things like that. But otherwise, other than those camps, I mean, they're going to be living their best life playing video games all day or going swimming in the backyard. And that's pretty much it. We don't have a whole lot on the schedule for them. I think I really waited too long to get a consistent sitter for them and stuff like that. I mean, I can check into it, but I don't know that I want to. I feel like after the year they've had, I'm kind of okay with them just letting them be kids and just doing what they want to do before school starts back up again. Anyway, I went off on a tangent there. Sorry.
Yeah, decision fatigue is such a good phrase. It's been such a tough year for parents because everybody is trying to make the best and safest decisions for themselves and their kids. And that includes factoring in the mental health of their kids. And then you also have the factor of feeling judged by other parents. Like, I feel like no matter what you did, no matter which end of the spectrum you were on, like feeling judged for being too cautious and not sending them to school, or feeling judged for people thinking you're too loose because of what you're letting them do. And we are all, as parents, just trying to do the best thing for our kids. No parent has ever navigated a global pandemic. There is no parenting book in which they talk about what the fuck to do during a time like this. I'm sure they will write one. I'm sure somebody is working on it now. But yeah, this has been such an intense year of, because not only are you figuring out what's best for your kids' mental health, like we're trying to keep our own mental health in check. For me, on the same end of the spectrum as you guys, where we were super cautious and the kids were home, like feeling like you're stuck with your kids all the time is not fun. And also knowing that my 2-year-old has gone to the school of Dino Dana this year, like he literally can tell you any fact about dinosaurs. And now that he's actually going to be starting school, he's going to preschool in a few weeks because our childcare situation changed really rapidly. And he actually thinks he's going to a dinosaur school. So he's going to be very disappointed.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how kids and parents come out of this, because we're all going to be feeling the major effects of the intensity of this year and the insane decision fatigue.
Oof. Yeah. Yeah, that's all I know what to say.
Yes.
Well, let's dive into our squad wants to know. So we put out for our listeners to ask some questions around this topic. We got like multiple questions about how to navigate the conversation of, are you vaccinated?
Should we mask?
Should we mask?
All of those things.
Like just the awkwardness of, I mean, I guess this doesn't apply to, there's some people that I feel really comfortable and already know that they're vaccinated and they wear masks, like duh, because that's my people and who we're around. But they're, especially as parents with kids and like starting to navigate play dates again and like all of that of like, are you vaccinated? Like, yeah. Do you have any tips around that? That probably got asked like 4 or 5 times.
Yeah. In different ways. Yes.
Yeah.
So I feel like that question is going to be like the new, do you have firearms in your home?
Oh,
Yes. Yes.
And I think you have to check in with yourself on like, do I feel more protective around being polite and not offending somebody? Or do I feel more protective around the health of myself and my family? Like, this goes back to, it should not be political that we are getting vaccinated or not. And so I think, especially in a state like Texas, it's only an awkward conversation because vaccines have become something that feels political. Like, there actually are people that they are not able to get vaccinated for whatever reason, like health reasons or being allergic to the vaccines. And so I think it's just a situation of letting go of the people-pleasing parts that are trying to be polite and not offend somebody by asking if they're vaccinated or not. And we have to get a lot more comfortable around, like, oh, are you comfortable if I take my mask off, or would you prefer I leave it on? Mm-hmm. I think they'll become more regular questions that we just start to get comfortable asking.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love the comparison to firearms, which I actually, the very first time, this was like, gosh, Rory was probably like 5 or 6. I think he was in kindergarten, and his first like invitation for a play date at someone's house, like one of his classmates, like the mom reached out, and I remember like I was like, sorry, but I have 1 million questions, and I asked about guns and do they have a pool and is it fenced and like who else lives in the household? Like I asked like 20 questions, and she was like super impressed, and she was like, I never thought to even ask any of these questions. Like I'm so impressed that you like thought to ask these questions. And I was like, oh, I didn't know that it wasn't normal not to ask these questions.
Yeah.
But it led to a really, interesting dynamic. And that's still one of Rory's like best friends. He hasn't actually seen him this whole pandemic, but it was worth having. I guess my point is it was worth having the awkward conversation because they are so close, and it allowed that relationship to develop.
I think the only thing I'd add to that is for me personally, I feel some sense of control and power when I acknowledge how awkward it is. And so I'm like, look, this is going to be awkward, so I'm just going to ask it. There's no good way to do it. And then you ask the questions. It's definitely a conversation worth having, especially if it comes to our kids and their safety. So, I personally am fine biting the bullet and being the awkward mom, and maybe they can judge me. It's fine. I don't give a shit. I'm not going to be your friend. My kid's going to be friends with your kids, that kind of thing. So for me personally, I find acknowledging the awkwardness to be very helpful.
Do we want to ask that last question, Naya, about anxiety?
Let's do it. Yeah. So one person had a question asking for tips managing anxiety. They said, the thought of not wearing a mask makes me anxious. The thought of still getting sick makes me anxious. And ditto that, my friend. I'm right there with them. So any tips from you, Ilyse, or from you, Alexis, on managing anxiety?
Well, first of all, I just want to say that's normal. I think most of us who have been worried about COVID have been experiencing just like a baseline of anxiety this year. For some of us, it was that way before the pandemic too. Like, I don't think I am diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder anymore, but my baseline is I run pretty anxious. And so I think it's normal to feel anxious around unmasking and around not wanting to get sick. We're still at risk to get sick, much lower risk being vaccinated. But I think it'll take some getting used to just feeling into like, oh, it's not as high risk as it was before. I would say one tip, just like moving into this next stage of the pandemic, is just moving at your own comfort level. Like, just because Texas says that you don't have to wear a mask doesn't mean that you cannot wear a mask. I will definitely still be masking both for my comfort level, and I feel like at this point it almost shows respect to other people to wear your mask. I've got my daytime mask and now my going out mask, so I'm good to go. And really checking in with yourself on, is this anxiety warranted? Or is this anxiety like past the point of being warranted anxiety? Like, is this anxiety relevant to the situation where it's like, okay, we're still in a pandemic, there's still significant COVID numbers, or is my anxiety more heightened than the situation? And with anxiety especially, so often we feel it physically. And so making sure that you're doing a lot of check-ins with your body sensations and trying to process the anxiety through the body, so that it doesn't get stuck and just fester there. But yeah, those are some of my suggestions for anxiety.
I guess one thing popped in my head to add when you were talking about, when you were just normalizing it, is something that I often talk about with my clients, is like humanizing it, which kind of goes in line with that of just like anxiety is actually like a nice friend sometimes. Like, it can be helpful. And then there's other times where you're really annoyed that it wants to hang out. And so humanizing it in that way of like, okay, my friend's here and I'm really not here for this visit. So it can help to kind of contain and compartmentalize of like, why is my friend showing up? What do I need? And like, maybe let me tell it to take a break for a minute. But like, the goal doesn't have to be for it to go away like forever. You can still kind of keep it in the next room. So yeah, I think sometimes that can help with like minimizing the like, something's wrong with me, when no, like, this is a protective thing and it's here for a reason, and that's okay. And that's normal in a global pandemic. Like,
right.
So, but we're out of time. And this was awesome. And we appreciate you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Can you tell our listeners how they can find you, and we'll add it to our show notes as well?
Sure. So I'm on Instagram at Moving Parts Psychotherapy. I'm kind of on TikTok, and I think I'm at the same name, but I don't really go on it that much. But if you feel compelled to follow me there, you can. And then my website is movingpartspsychotherapy.com.
Awesome. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much.
If the Top Knot Squad's content makes you laugh, nod in agreement, or makes you feel less alone, we'd love your support in the cost of producing this podcast. Visit patreon.com/TopKnotSquad to learn more about our budget-friendly sponsorship tiers and how you can help ensure that TKS has a future. Every little bit helps.
If you like what you hear, then be sure to click the subscribe button in your podcast app. While you're there, leave us a review. You can find us on social media. Just search for Top Knot Squad. We welcome your feedback and love making new friends.